and I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone. Sweep the streets I used to own.
Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode. The topic today is media.
But before we get into that, how are you feeling, Kelly?
Feeling okay. Getting the flu sucks.
Well, I and the crew are sure glad that you're back with us. There's a special day coming up very soon.
What would it be? Your birthday's in July.
No, it involves green, money, and a slice of the UK.
Wait, St. Patrick's Day?
Yep, St. Patrick's Day is just around the corner on Sunday the 17th. So 3 cheers for leprechauns, rainbows, and Ireland.
And in such fashion, we'll toss it over to Eileen and Dhruv back on our last episode to talk about the events happening in the upcoming weekend. Ben, you want to give these two freshmen an intro?
Sure. Eileen is in our instrumental band class and plays the clarinet. As our band director, Mr. Newton's teaching assistant, I work with the instrumental class in the morning. Dhruv, though not my link, I've gotten to know through Moreau's Link Crew program.
And I'm a link leader too. Speaking of that, those of you freshmen listening and my links, love you guys. Don't forget the Freshman Carnival on Wednesday, March 20th during both office hours. I'll be working in the Polaroid booth.
And I'll be whipping up some mean quesadillas. But without further ado, let's hear about the upcoming events for the weekend.
Thanks, guys. There's so many things going on throughout the Bay that it's impossible to say there's nothing to do this weekend.
For those of you in the South Bay, the Park James Hotel in Menlo Park is hosting a St. Patrick's Day party featuring a vegetarian shepherd's pie. The hotel is just one of many happening in the South Bay.
Yet St. Patrick's Day's festivities aren't the only things going on. The Jewish holiday of Purim is the tale told in the book of Esther, the Megillah, and ends with Haman's hanging and the Jewish people being saved. Purim is being celebrated on the 14th and 15th days of Adar, the 12th month of the Jewish calendar, which usually coincides with March.
There are various weekend celebrations happening, one of which is the 2019 Purim Octopretzel Festival featuring live music, costumes, and a puppet show. This is happening at the Jewish Community Center of San Francisco on Sunday at 11 a.m. If you can't make it out into the city, there are also celebrations in Berkeley and Marin on Sunday, and more details about those and all of the events discussed here can be found on sf.funcheap.com. St. Patrick's Day celebrations can be found everywhere, but the two most prominent are in San Francisco and Dublin. San Francisco hosts its annual St. Patrick's Day parade, and afterward, it won't be hard to find an after-party or Irish tap dancing demonstration. At Dublin Civic Centre, the city hosts their St. Patrick's Day festival after the city's parade. Both the city's events are chock full of nice day experiences.
For those of you puppy lovers, head over to Fort Mason in San Francisco for the 2019 St. Patrick's Day's Dog Parade and Costume Contest on Saturday.
Yet for those of you not looking for the Green Man's festivities, we have a few awesome things for you as well.
The 2019 Hot Air Music Festival, the celebration of contemporary music, is on Sunday on Oak Street and features up and coming bands, composers, and ensembles. I think Ben may go on by there to check it out.
Once again, all of this and more are happening this weekend. For more events and details, head to sffuncheap.com.
Before we hand it over, Uber and Lyft are giving out free rides. GEL accident attorneys are reimbursing you up to $20 for a Lyft cab or Uber. More info on the website.
As we've discussed in previous episodes, the power of influence and socialization can be very impactful, though oftentimes in a negative fashion. Shunning the negative effects of such requires an open and educated mind.
The media can use both to affect society. The kind of media the American public is most familiar with is mainstream media, like CNN, NBC, ABC, and more. From small startups, they have acquired and maintained a monopoly over virtually all of the news that we immediately come into contact with. Despite the amount of brands that we see everywhere, from supermarkets to local food stores to products sold all over Amazon, few companies own most of those brands.
People are capable of starting up their own companies, sure, but competition, price levels, and consumer familiarity with big brands over small brands time and time again force out these companies. As a result, there's virtually no change in how we perceive choice and competition, in actuality being illusions themselves. Weakness in the economy due to monopolization is heavily apparent in the technology sector, followed by other more traditional sectors. This explains why we typically have fewer choices in our lifestyle.
But despite the concentration of sellers and buyers of products and services, especially in the media, we as individuals can still make educated choices and be our unique selves.
Okay, welcome. May you introduce yourself?
My name is Dave Prisk. I'm an English teacher at Monroe Catholic High School.
Okay, well, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, Gabriel.
Yeah. So, we're talking about media and specifically the news and, for example, how it's mostly becoming a monopoly in terms of how you see lots of channels, but they're really actually owned by few corporations or companies. So, what is or what should be the primary function for media?
That's an interesting question because I don't know that there should be a primary function for media. I feel like its function or the role that it plays in social discourse could change potentially based on the context that is arising. But I mean, if we're talking about political life and kind of the discourse of democracy, ideally the role of the media would simply be to provide audiences. That would mean that there would be some media outlets that would be purely non-biased, to slant the news with a particular agenda to the right or to the left, that they would, rather than giving the impression that they're objective and then passing in a certain point of view along with the objective information, interpreting it, if you will, to the audience.
What about, for example, letting the outlets that come from that political perspective, that they should also be allowed to come into the discourse, provided they give that perspective. So, how do you generally feel about it?
I mean, I consume as much of it as anyone, so I can't hostile to media, but I do find myself generally distrustful of whatever I read or hear, just because I've become kind of prone to the belief that whatever I'm hearing is probably slanted. Assume that there is a point of view which has had some impact on the way the story is being shared. Given confirmation bias, to gravitate towards information that confirms what they already believe to be true, given the discord that people feel when they're into watching a news program on CNN and realizing that is not purely the news. Even though they like to report themselves as being objective, I've seen enough content on CNN. They have a left-leaning slant that is going to influence some of the information they choose to include or exclude from their reporting. In the same way that I know that if I go to MSNBC, they're going to be free to go online to sources, they might move even more sharply left or right. That comes into play in news media. If it's news we're talking about more than anything, be able to attract subsidizers. They need to be able to get advertising dollars. They need guaranteed markets that are going to buy their product or watch them. Yeah. And the best way to do that, rather than objectively reporting information that people have to figure out for themselves, kind of go for the pre-digested information, the pre-chewed Dorito chips. They already to have done the heavy sifting and weighing, and they would like to be able to trust that when they get the ration, everything that was important and eliminated everything that is unimportant, without having to take into consideration that what is important or unimportant, the person that's sifting it and weighing it. But they need, the company, the news agency itself needs advertising dollars, and so they have to run their business with a tremendous amount of social impact in what they do as a commercial enterprise that needs to commoditize the news and package it in a way that guarantees that it is going to be saleable to different groups.
Political skewedness.
The responsibility that I would, us as consumers, is the same kind of responsibility that I would argue a person has. Breakfast bar is the best for them in the morning or something. You can't make the decision about the breakfast bar you're going to eat based on the pick to entice you into believing that what you're getting is good. And as with media outlets, different in appearance. So the idea that a person needs to take upon themselves the responsibility of look side. You have to go back into the parent company and find out who runs this. What kinds of other products or news are left-leaning. I should be paying attention to what's happening on Fox News from time to time. I should read articles, be able to look at Al Jazeera from time to time. And I have to be able to do it in a way that doesn't have me begin that process wrong, but simply look at what they presented as the news and compare and contrast it to what I'm getting in other news outlets. The responsibility ultimately is on me to decide where do I feel the truth of this story lies, nutritional needs, and it's going to do the least amount of damage to my diabetes. That kind of a decision. Almost a false paradigm there. I think that news outlets are likely on the whole model that requires them to cater to a market that they're guaranteed they can get advertising. Turn factual reporting into opinion-based reporting that's only partially complete. And
Thanks for your time, Mr. Prisk.
Oh, Gabriel, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, see you.
That was Gabriel Sedano interviewing Dave Prisk on the media. Once again, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to this episode. Come back next week for our topic, culture, but also don't forget that you can be the one to make a change. Have an amazing St. Patrick's Day, and we'll see you next week.